Hey everyone, it's 1010 the Navigator here. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about my thoughts on the Anunnaki, and potentially talk about the Pleiadians, um, as well as some of the things going on in the alien conspiracy community. I don't even like really calling it that. I'm sure there's probably another way of presenting that information, but that's just what I've known. That's how it's been categorized. So, who do I think the Anunnaki are? Now, I do see that it's possible that there are multiple sects of Anunnaki. So, maybe three groups of Anunnaki. You could have um, the higher ups, in essence, maybe gods similar to Yahweh, more of a dictatorship like. And I apologize if I offend anyone, but should say it in a different way, like a patriarch system, one God, one ruler, one leader, one controller of all. Okay, and then the second group being multiple rulers, leaders, gods, imparting wisdom upon the planet to help evolve a species or create a species, because at this point, there's so much information about who really created humans and is it the Pleiadians? Is it the Anunnaki? And I can understand, the confusion there because there's multiple sides to it. So, in the third group of Anunnaki, now I'm just saying three, could be some type of mixture. Anunnaki, not necessarily with human. That's a, that's not being with someone on your level, physically, mentally. It's a little bit of a downgrade, probably in their eyes, just from what I've read. So it could be that there's a mixture of Anunnaki with potentially Draconian, and you could see maybe Anunnaki with Pleiadian, something possibly genetically modified or mutated in a way. And then maybe the fourth group being that of humans and Anunnakis mixing together. But these are just my thoughts. It doesn't necessarily make it true. But one thing about the Anunnaki, and whether it's just one large group, and we can look at this from a human perspective, that anytime a group of people go into a civilization or a culture, they try to colonize it, okay, and upgrade it. And they think that they are doing a service to this civilization or this ethnic group or, species of human in particular for us here on this planet. This group of Anunnaki thought that they were helping us to be more civilized, to become more intelligent, to become less slave-minded. I mean, this is what's presented to us, right, in these books and what people talk about, that the Anunnaki are here to help. Now, I'm not saying that they aren't, but we have to look at it from a perspective of, okay, so they came here, one story is they came here to mine for gold. They needed gold for Nibiru or their, whatever planet they come from. And so they enslaved, which we can read that in, different texts, that they came to enslave and try to build maybe like a superhuman of some sort, or genetically modify a human to create something more useful for them. Because if we're going to look at these extraterrestrial species, now they could want to help, but the Anunnaki seem less of a feeling in touch with their emotions type alien. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe they care for these, the humans, and but it just seems more like colonizers to me. And I'm not saying that all colonization is bad, but there's always a hidden agenda, that's presented or not presented, where it's like, oh, hey, humans, we're not going to tell you we want you to be our slaves. We really like you to mine for this gold because we'd rather you do it than us, which shows their capacity to control and utilize the slave mind mentality that humans are susceptible to. A lot of us still have a slave mentality. A lot of us are aware of that type of mentality. Some have learned to work their way out of it. Some are still in the process of working their way out of that slave mentality. But to remove yourself completely from a slave mentality would be to completely remove yourself from any political system or party, remove yourself from any religious faction, remove yourself from probably any civilization, and live on your own. And that would probably be, and there might be some more, I just can't think of all of them, but that's how I feel you could remove yourself completely from the slave systems that have been set up, where what's worse, knowing that you're a slave or not knowing that you're a slave, in these different systems. And there's so many systems that are intricately woven together that when you feel like you've broken out of one, you're like, well, damn, I'm here in this other one. So now I have to work my way out of this systematic function that has been ingrained in me as normal. So the Anunnaki have, from what I can tell, brought certain things to this planet. I don't believe that it is with the intention to genuinely help, the humans without receiving something from the human race or the races that are here. There are different humanoid races that dwell here on this planet. And I do have other videos where I talk about there are humanoids from Jupiter that live here. There are humanoids from Mars that live here. Venus, probably the planets. Now, whether you want to believe that there is a planetary system or this is, where we are, what they call Earth is surrounded by an ice wall and has, outside of it, there are different, systems or ice walls that encapsulate a whole civilization similar to ours. All that remains for debate. Is the Earth flat? Is it round? I think the conclusion that we can come to is that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. We do know that we are being manipulated by our own government and these different systems, as well as outside extraterrestrial alien influences that play a heavy part in the world and the economic system that we live in. So we could be some giant, laboratory experiment. We could be something so special that was created and is loved by these beings so greatly that they would want to promise us eternity. And we really have to start thinking about this as human beings, because the problem too is that as humans, or as the species that lives here on this planet, you desire to have a savior. That is ingrained in you. And the moment that you realize that no one is here to save you physically, now spiritually, that's up for debate, but physically, you want things to change, you have to be the change. You want an alien species to come in and save you from this government, when those same alien species are working along with different governments on this planet, and you can still see the injustices that are being performed on this species here on this earth. I mean, I'm speaking to myself, so don't take any of this personally if you know it's not for you. But we see, and I don't like using the term like you're woke, or you must have, like, you must be some type of special person, and we're here to try to figure out what's going on, right? What's really going on. And a lot of you have started probably with the music industry, then you probably went to maybe religion, the government systems. Why are the pyramids in Egypt? Why in Washington, D.C., do they utilize old, Greco-Roman style? It looks like they just transported buildings over to the state capital, or maybe that is Rome. Like, we've just been told that it was in Italy. So the issue that I see too, and I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but and I'm going to reference back to the Bible. Now, whether you believe in it or not, that's fine. It doesn't matter. But I do see that Revelation, in a lot of ways, it's a psychologically damaging book to people. It messed me up when I was in Christianity, caused me a heck of a lot of confusion most of the time. And I read and studied and, took it literally, took it, spiritually, tried to look at it as metaphors, things of that nature. But you have to understand, and I know you do, that we can call them enemies. That would be the easiest term. But if you can understand the psychology and the mentality of a lot of these different groups, you have like the Bilderberg group, and you have the Bohemian Grove, and you have the Illuminati, and you have the Freemasons, and a lot of them, their whole way of life is, it's not wrong if we don't share this information with them. We'll tell them, and they might do it by using a Simpsons episode, or they might tell you by integrating it into music, and people just look at it and they're like, oh, it's kind of weird. But they're telling you, it's kind of a similar thing with the book of Revelation. It's like, this is what's happened, in my opinion. This is probably revelation is what happened to other planets. The black cube was brought here, and like these humanoid races were wiped out. If they didn't take the mark, because it looks like humans were just in the middle, is what I'm trying to say, that neither side really favored the humans. So I think we have to come to a common consensus. Now, whether you say, well, 1010, I think I'm half Anunnaki. Okay, that's a possibility. Or I'm draconian. Okay, that's a possibility. I'm not counting that out. But at the end of the day, would they accept you, because you're not 100%? Will they, and I mean this by the Anunnaki, and there is a battle that takes place here on this planet, and the humans are in the middle. So you have probably like the one species coming from the clouds, and it's not Jesus, it's not God, it's a type of God to us, because that's how we understand it as humans. But a lot of us now we understand that this is a battle over territory. And then you have the group of humans that are subjected to these wars, and they take a side, and then they realize, oh, we took the wrong side. And then you have the Jupiters, who were, in essence, maybe the ones who brought this war upon us. And, I know that's a lot to hear, but whatever they dealt with on their planet, they're bringing it here to this planet, because this planet is promised to them by whatever species, and they're not even going to be involved. They're going to be fine. They're going to be separate from this. They're going to watch as the other species and the humans go out there and fight. If you don't take the mark from the beast, then you're going to be decapitated. But at the end, if you stand and fight, you are going to lose to this alien race that comes through the clouds. And I know there's those that, what about the rapture? Well, the rapture or the harvest might not be so great either, because who's to say that when you're raptured or harvested up, that your life is going to be better? You're just gone. Where are they taking you? Is it to another Earth somewhere? Is it to a worse situation than what you already were in? No, I don't want to be negative, but we have to start thinking objectively. Not everyone is your friend. And I think that that's a problem that we see in this community. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't nice aliens, but I'm going to tell you that it probably would be on a face-to-face basis. I would have to build trust with that one particular alien, not the whole species, because they probably aren't all the same. Kind of like how we're not all the same, right? We may have similar mindsets, or some of us don't have similar mindsets, but we're all categorized as humans, right? So if the majority of humans are, greedy and selfish and rude, what about the others that aren't? They're kind of like in the background, But anyway, my point is this, in essence, that I don't trust the Anunnaki. I don't trust the Pleiadians. I don't trust the Greys. And like I said, it's not that I don't like them or couldn't like them, but you have to earn my trust. I don't like politicians. We're in the same rut we're always in, and nothing really has changed. So you have to understand that if we are to survive whatever happens, I know a lot of you are excited and you're probably going to unsubscribe to my channel after I say this stuff, but there's a good chance that they are not going to be friendly. All right. And I know some say, well, there are aliens that want to help. Maybe, like I said, maybe a sprinkle of them do. And they just happen to be a part of that same, species. But we have to look at it from the perspective of what will they gain from the human race? What will they get when they come here? Bodies, natural resources. And let's just say, because you have to think about yourself in that situation. If your planet maybe is destroyed or you're some kind of space pirate, you're not necessarily trying to restore balance to the universe. You're trying to keep your family alive. So how would you do that? Maybe at all costs. Maybe you'd break the law. That's what I'm trying to say. So let's say my children are starving, my family's starving, and we're at the end. I don't know what I would be capable of doing, but I would be looking out for the best interests of the people in my life. So if my species, I'm trying to keep it alive, I'm going to look out for their best interests. I don't care about your species. I may act like I care, but that's not my end goal. Now, most of you don't know, if you haven't listened to my video about when I had contact. Now, my contact was not Anunnaki that I could tell. It looked more draconian or reptilian-like. Okay, and a lot of you have negative thoughts and feelings about that, and that's okay. Do I trust the reptilian and the draconian? I mean, they didn't hurt me. They could have. The first time was when I was laying in my bed and I woke up and saw this very tall, overpowering looking being. Looked like it had wings or, just larger body, darker, maybe scaled, larger head, not the shape of a human, unless Anunnaki look animal-like, which is possible too. But it used its mind to put me back to sleep. I don't know if it wanted me to see it, but I did. And then that very same year, I went back in time, standing next to that same being, and I watched a draconian or a reptoid-like creature hack into somebody's brain with its tail. Now you'll say, well, that sounds, bad. But we have to look at the instance in the Garden of Eden when the snake came to the woman and imparted knowledge. They didn't know they were naked. They didn't know anything. They took care of the garden. Who lets their gardeners be naked and work? Doesn't seem like it would be a good situation. So I know some would say, well, it's the innocence. Yes, and they took advantage of that innocence. You could have given them clothes to wear, shoes and things. Could have tended the garden with clothes on, with some shoes. Probably some of you've worked in the garden. I don't know if I would do that without shoes on. Snakes and bugs and sticks and sandspurs and sharp rocks and things like that. So went off on another tangent there, but I just want to share some of my thoughts. So when it comes to the Anunnaki, they're supposed to be coming the end of the year, anywhere between September, which we'll probably start seeing an onslaught of potential like alien activity. Okay, maybe not. Maybe we'll be so shielded from it because, you know, they had this silly court case about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, which keeps people distracted from what's really going on. You know, most people spent their days watching that, you know, instead of doing other things. But not everyone thinks the same. So I'll tell you, when I went back in time also, I know some people don't believe in time travel. I personally never really thought of it that way. Because of the time when I was standing there, it was not a dream. I was physically present, brought back in time. I didn't realize it was back in time until I met the person whom this happened to, where their mind was unlocked by a draconian. So, and you can go to his channel, it's Radix. Most of you are probably from his channel anyway, so you know what I'm talking about. But the whole part about the stargates and the bobs, BAABS, made sense to me, because I'm like, how would it be able to go back? So that particular being took me to a stargate, I'm guessing, or a Baab, which must be close by, close enough. And it's nothing for them to take you back in time, probably. Just depends on how well your body goes back. And I can't remember who said it. I think it was Godspark. Did you say the Anunnaki are fourth dimension beings, I think? And I wanted to talk a little bit about that too, which is really interesting comment. Again, everyone, I'm not a professional on the Anunnaki or aliens or anything like that. I've literally been going through this for like a year. And when I would see things previously about the Anunnaki or whatever, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. But I would never delve into it. A lot of it just confused me. So now I'm trying to get out of that. I'm trying to learn more. I'm trying to formulate using my mind and my soul and my spirit and my body to help me understand fully, not relying just on the spiritual aspect or the logical aspect, but all of it in its completeness. Like, why? Why is this happening? Why did I go through what I went through? Why did they bring themselves to me to see certain things? What was the point of that? Is for this moment, because I wouldn't be here talking about this stuff. I never would have a channel, because believe it or not, I'm a shy person and I'm a loner for the most part. So this is not my idea of a good time. However, I like talking about this stuff, but I like talking about it with people that I know understand, even if we don't agree on everything. We've all been in situations where we've tried to talk to family or friends, and they just look at us and they're like, well, we have the crazy aunt over here. And it's like, it's really not crazy. I mean, there's historical, geological evidence. You know, there's old newspaper articles about this stuff. 1949, 1942. Why do I always get this mixed up? When the UFOs were over the Capitol, and they were at I think it was Dallas Airport in Washington, D.C. I think that's right. But anyway, that's out there. And you can go to mygov.com and you can look up because we have the right to know about this stuff. Look up anything you want for the most part, and that will pull up like UFO activity. They might write it differently, so you have to be creative, and some of it's blacked out, so you can't read all the documents. But if you've gone there before, that stuff's available, these documents, because they're supposed to share it with us, and they do, but a lot of people don't look at it. So when it comes to the Anunnaki, we're just really going to have to physically see the signs. We're all preparing in the best way that we can. But I don't believe as a species, a humanoid species here on this planet, that we're actually all ready. Because there will be a small group of us who most likely will not take a side, because if we stay out of it, it's probably in our better interest to do that. Now, we're going to see some injustice being performed here if this is to take place. It just depends. And now we have the Pleiadians, with whom I heard they were involved with Nazi Germany, and you know, they want to spiritually enlighten you and take you to another dimension and onto that fourth dimension topic. We are three-dimensional beings, or two-dimensional. It just depends, I guess, on how you want to look at it. But when we go to sleep, right, we supposedly go into these different dimensions or realms. And some of us can elevate and dimension hop better than others, maybe. Maybe not even intentionally. Maybe our drive here on Earth to increase what we know drives us in this sleep where we know we can actually get things done on I sound like one of those gurus on YouTube, on a conscious level. But this is the kind of stuff that we've been hearing, right? But nobody's taking into consideration that the body and the mind and the spirit and the soul, you know, spirit and soul could be a same thing, but ourselves as an entirety need to be a part of this process. You know, not I, you know, travel to the 5D and I talk to this, you know, person on the Galactic Council, and they tell me random itty bitty pieces of information like Australia and cattle dogs, and not giving a clear message, not giving a clear message. And this is the kind of stuff that we need to cut out, because Summer Brown mentioned this lady whom I've never heard of, and you'll have to forgive me because I just don't know. So I appreciate when people put this kind of stuff, because I don't. Elena Denane. Now, I don't have anything against her, but apparently she's going through some type of beef with Megan Rose, who's a Pleiadian contactee, and Elena Denane speaks to the Galactic Council or some general or something, and she's got a whole thing written out on her website as to why she's right and Megan Rose is wrong. So, and I'm not saying her stuff isn't good. I haven't listened to all of it, so I really don't know. But this is the kind of thing when we talk about channeling and, you know, tapping into a higher conscious, it's not just spiritual. It's not. Like, it starts in your mind, and your mind is what can propel you into potentially another dimension. Now, if the Anunnaki are fourth dimensional beings, that would make sense because they have an elevated conscious or mindset as opposed to us here on Earth, on this planet. You know, like when you're sleeping and you feel like you're living a completely different life up there in the dream state. That's what they call it. But maybe in essence, you're talking to your conduit. And that kind of made sense to me. The conduit part of the 2022 Anunnaki Code talked about how you're linked with an Anunnaki. So this could be for other alien species too. So let's say, I don't really know who I'm connected to, but I feel like it's possible that they could be a species that no one's aware of. Because there was something on Coast to Coast about there's 82 extraterrestrial species. So we only name really a handful, and we only dwell on those handful because that's what we have understanding and access to. And there's multiple books that have been created to try to help us understand these different alien species. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that even if someone says, hi, we're here to help, you know, we have to treat it in a similar way as, okay, well, I can either trust you or not trust you. You have to, you have to earn my trust. And a lot of times, especially from what I can perceive, a lot of people are very trusting of certain things. So if we want to survive whatever it is that's going to happen, we have to study even harder than we have before. And I'm not saying that spiritualism is weird or whack or whatever. And what I'm talking about is when people do drugs to try to like go into another dimension, you don't have control over your mind. Okay? So when you're on drugs to go into another realm or dimension, what if that's just you and your fears and your thoughts now being presented to you? So at this point, the story that you're telling me is no longer as credible because your mind has been diluted, okay, and polluted by whatever. So I'll tell you, when I had my experience, now I haven't had one, and it's possible that I have maybe been taken a couple of times, and I only base that upon the fact that my body tells me that that has happened. Physically, my hips hurt, my body hurts. I feel like I haven't slept even though I was asleep. There's no reason why that should be happening. And some would say, well, maybe that's, you got some disease. I don't. But it is possible. People are taken all the time. Why wouldn't another alien species want to come and take me after I had that experience? And maybe a lot of you have had a similar experience too, or a different experience. And you can tell physically the body doesn't feel right. But anyway, in the Bible, it does say in the end times. And like I talk about Revelation probably isn't even biblical. All right. It's telling you, it's an unveiling of what has happened in the past and what will happen and continue to happen on each planet until we figure this out. There is something that is going to take place, and it is going to be a very bad day for the humans. And at first it may look good. Oh, they're here to help, right? what is it? The beast promises, wealth and prosperity and all that stuff. And then after a while, can't keep his promise anymore. Death and destruction and all that. People start dying. I joke with Brad about, we've done this before, and he's like, that's depressing. And I bring up tarot cards, all right? Which is interesting because there is a chapter in this, the Anunnaki Final Warning to the Earth and Their Return in 2022, the 5th edition. Now, tarot cards, in my opinion, it's not possible. Either we're in a simulation, but we're not in a simulation, okay? Or 2 other options, possibly. We've already done this. So you're telling me that cards can collectively tap in to the mind of millions of people, or into your mind, into your thoughts, and tell you what's going to happen. Or we are in a natural reality with AI that is masking the truth of this place. You go outside and you look at your world and you think, this is really great. And the world is through certain people's eyes. But I don't necessarily look forward to another species coming to my planet to cause problems. We're here to help. We promise you food and water and shelter. And maybe I'm still trying to figure out what my problem is, but it's an understanding that, let's say you're a bear and I'm a wolf. We're 2 different species. And you come with a fish. You give me the fish and I look at you and I'm like, why are you here? And the bear's like, I just want to give you this fish. I know I see that you haven't really been able to catch anything, and I had an extra fish. I don't know of bears that eat wolves, but this is just the first thing that came to me. But the bear is willing to give up that fish. It probably would have been better if I used elk or moose. I don't know if moose eat fish either. But anyway, they're willing to give up something that they could utilize that would provide them with sustenance in whatever fashion that is. They're willing to give that. But in return for that, they want to earn your trust, which, that's why you always got to be careful to earn your trust. And then I'm not saying they want to kill you and eat you, but you just don't know. You really don't know. We don't know. We could be looking at battles that have ensued for millions of years over these different planets. Now, there was the movie Jupiter Ascending where it talked about harvesting souls, and they used their, the bodies on the planet to, they would reap them so they could have an extended amount of life. And maybe that's where my distrust comes from. I don't know. But when you grow up in a place like Earth, you should just come here and live and make a life, not given a number, not forced into a slavery, an indebted slave system, because this is indentured servitude. Yeah, you're getting paid for it, but you can't get out of it. If you try to get out of it, you'll lose your benefits, you'll lose this, you'll lose that. you can do it, at least here in America. Yeah, go ahead, try to get out of the system completely. See what that does for you. You can go live in the woods, but if we find you, we're going to fine you for trespassing, even though it's state property and people pay the taxes, so it should be owned by the people, but it's not. So when it comes to the Pleiadians, it could be very similar to the way I view the Anunnaki. And again, it was very difficult for me to find concrete evidence of the Pleiadians because most of the time, the people that talk about the Pleiadians talk about them in a dimensional or spiritual being, kind of like a religion almost. It's very odd and strange to me, but you know, that's just what happens. But now after reading the Battle of the Anunnaki Pleiadian Gods, we talked a little bit about, you know, the Pleiadians, and there's certain people groups, the steeps or whatever, they have, you know, like a different like grouping, like a different ancestry grouping than the rest. So I found that to be really interesting. So that kind of gave me a little bit more of like physical evidence of who they are. But again, if the Anunnaki and the Pleiadians are the same, could be the case, could be different factions of the same thing. You know, because the Anunnaki are like the fallen angels or whatever, could be. And then we also see that the Anunnaki were here and they got pushed out by the god Yahweh. And Yahweh was just one god from what we could tell. And he used the Jupiters to kill and destroy most of the civilizations here internally, because the Jupiters really had no battle skills. They're not incredibly large or skillful warriors. So they had to use, you know, some type of trickery, hate to say that, or weapon of some kind to help, I guess, to show their allegiance to Yahweh, who in the Bible also talks about like Leviathan, and Leviathan breathes fire from his nose. Kind of sounds like a dragon, but that's could have just been written in there. But anyway, I also want to mention too, like I'm not a professional book reader. So I am reading these chapters for these books in real time. Like I didn't read beforehand and then post. I don't reread and then edit my, you know, whether my reading is garbage or not. Sometimes I'm like, wow, I really messed up a lot in that. Because the experience of reading it firsthand is so much better. And if y'all haven't read the book, we're experiencing it in a similar way. So that builds, you know, I don't know, like an understanding, and that I'm sure we live in this day of perfectionism. So we're all just human. We're just trying to figure things out, right? Well, anyway, I hope y'all have a great day, and thanks for listening to me discuss some of my thoughts. It's not all of them, but I don't want to make this video too long. So, and again, thank you so much I really do appreciate a lot of you coming to this channel, subscribing and watching and leaving your comments. And even if you mean to share or not share, There's a lot of things that I don't know. So if you don't put it, if you think, well, I shouldn't put that, maybe you should, because I didn't know who Elena Denan was. And a few other people that have told me about other, YouTubers out there. So it gives me a different perspective on what's going on. And again, I know it sounds like I dislike Anunnaki or Pleiadians. And I will say this, I do not dislike them. I do not trust them. But I'm neutral to them. They could do good or they could do evil. And really the only way we can find out, unfortunately, is when they come back, or if somehow that information is relayed to us and given to the right people. And what will we do with it once we have it? So I'd like to know your thoughts on, like, if the Anunnaki come back this year, what do you think that they'll do for humanity? Now, your honest opinions, because I gave you my honest opinion, I don't trust them. But like I said, it doesn't mean I dislike them. I have difficulty understanding how an advanced alien civilization would want to help humans here without wanting something in return that will cost us as the human race in a huge way. So anyway, have a great one. Hope you all enjoy your Sunday. And CERN is up to something this weekend. So I think they're doing it on the 5th. And I'm thinking, this is a little side note, if they're trying to open up a portal or something like that, they may know of a portal and they may try to open it like a Stargate or a Baab already. Let me know what you think about CERN if you make it to the end of this video. It's possible that they're trying to keep the Anunnaki from coming back by opening this portal, by potentially going back in time and us not realizing it. I know that sounds crazy, but those are just some of my thoughts. Happy 4th, everyone. Stay safe.